Yes, hoping for your coming.
Yes.
Speaking of which, John 16:20. Truly, truly, I say to you, you will weep and lament, but the world will rejoice. You will be sorrowful, but your sorrow will turn into joy. When a woman is given birth, she has sorrow because her hour has come. But when she has delivered the baby, she no longer remembers the anguish for joy that a human being has been born into the world. So also you have sorrow now, but I will see you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. Now, it's interesting, when you go through the scriptures, the first thing that you look at is the context of what is being said, what it was written down for us, and we have to understand the context. So this is to the disciples, because they're going to, some of them will see Jesus hang on the cross. John, we know John does. We know the women do. But the other disciples, where are they? They're hiding. I don't know if you knew that, but they're hiding that day, and for the next few days they're hiding. But Jesus returns to them that night, and 3 nights later, when he resurrected, he returns to them, and they're hiding. So even though it was written to the disciples, it is for us as well. Because I don't know about you, but when I see what's happening in America, what's happening in the world, what's happening in Israel, it is very, very sad. We really don't have a lot of time, and I'm sure probably most of you see them, but the individual stories that are happening around the world of what's happening with trafficked children, what's happening with just so many dastardly, can we use that word? Dastardly things that are happening on the planet. And it's a very, very sad thing. And then, when we talk to Americans, we get a little bit myopic. We're looking at Americas because we are here, and this is the greatest country, to us at least, that's ever been. It's wonderful. It's the most powerful still in the nation, and we've lived in the greatest age, it seems, to me, because I grew up there, and that's all I know. But now when we see what is happening around us, I don't know about you, but my heart turns to sorrow when I see these things. So the Olympics have started. So they didn't allow the Jews to wear the yellow ribbon, because the yellow ribbon is solidarity with their hostages. Now, think about this. Wasn't there a song? Yellow ribbon? Oh, tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Everybody get up. Now, we all know it, right? See, that shows our age as well. Anyway, they wanted to wear a yellow ribbon. They said no. But look at the shirt that this gentleman has on your left. He has aircraft, he has bombs, bombing Israel. Look on the streets of Paris. Look at one of the welcoming signs here. Olympics 2024, when it comes to killing for sport, and Israel, the Israeli flags are on the stand there as winning this competition. It says there's no competition. So now we have to put this in perspective here, okay? Because several places in the First Testament, the Lord says that the world will profane Israel, charge Israel for profaning the name of their God, right? And in the next great war, we don't know if that's World War III coming down, I think at the end, Armageddon maybe. But, that one that takes place with Ezekiel, it specifically says that at the end of chapter 39, it says they will profane my name no more. So there's several reasons why the Lord is going to bring all this to an end. And one of the major ones, and we have to remember this, why does God do things? Well, we say he wants to save us, right? And he does. He wants to save sinners. He does. He wants to judge the world. He wants to bring peace to the world, and he does. People go, Lord, you're not doing a great job of it, but he does. He's going to bring peace to the world. But we have to remember, and I just want to remind you, and I'll say this every once in a while so we never lose sight of this fact. God does everything for the name of the glory of his name. That's the primary, the very first, the preeminent thing that he does is everything is to glorify his holy name. And it just happens to be that he does good. He's good and he does good and he wants to save us. And he incorporates his servants into his work, the angels, you and I, the church, and Israel again at some point. So it's very interesting that God chooses that. The Bible specifically says that he doesn't share his glory with anyone. And yet it talks about the glory that will be of the Israelites and of the church. You'll shine brighter than the sun, those kinds of things. But you're not sharing his. He has his own, and he's doing that for his own glory. And just a reminder again, the principalities and powers don't understand this. They don't get this. Like, how come God isn't wiping out sin? How come God is just not doing away with everything and everybody? I want to remind you that they didn't know what sin was until sin entered the devil. And then he sinned, and then the Lord was angry at him. And so, just think about what the angels are looking at here when God gets angry and curses Satan. And then Adam and Eve sin. And then God steps in with mercy and says that mercy is going to come in the seed of Adam and Eve. And so the angels never saw that before either. They're being caught by surprise. The Lord is unfolding, according to Ephesians chapter 2 and 3. He's unfolding all of this before the principalities and powers of the air. Because that's why the angels rejoice. They've never seen this in the past. And now how he's dealing with the principalities and powers and the people of the planet. So the Israeli Olympic team were not allowed to wear yellow ribbon pins for the hostages during the Paris Olympics. So they sent a message. See in the pool there? Bring them home now. And that is really kind of unique. So let's just dive into this weird stuff. If people don't read the Bible, when they look at this stuff, remember, we have a biblical worldview. And we are to look at the world through the biblical worldview. And so people might say, well, boy, Raymond, that white horse issue in Revelation chapter 6, you comparing it to this, that's pretty much a stretch. And I would retort, that's all I know. That's all I know. I mean, we remember the cowboy who used to wear the white, he used to sing, who's the guy he had a white horse, him and his wife, and Roy Rogers. Yeah, I'm thinking of Roy Rogers, yeah, white hat, white horse, lovely man, whatever. And we think of those kinds of things, but yeah, I mean, because we see those. But if that's all people know, they're being short-sighted. They're being short in their knowledge. You and I know of the white horse that Jesus will ride, and we also know the white horse that the Antichrist, well, at least the power of the white horse and the rider in Revelation chapter 6. Okay, so this person comes into the arena after going down the Seine River, and this ghost type horse here. Now, if you saw it, it's just like, where do they come up with this stuff, and why do they choose this? Why do they choose this stuff? It's really interesting. We're going to ask a couple more questions. Why do they do certain things that they do? So it's interesting that the Olympic announcer, and I can't remember his name, but the news announcer, but he does all kinds of sports. he was all the way down the sign, so, the saying, he said, well, there's 36 pairs of these dove's wings, he called them. And it's to reveal, the peace, and Paris is offering peace to the world, and all these other things. And then when the horse comes into the stadium where everybody's waiting for the open assembly here, it's not dove's wings. It's this. This is the picture that we get. And I say, well, okay, wait a minute. That does not look like an offering of peace to me. This looks, okay, what kind of words do we want to use? Does it look satanic? Does it look warlike? Does it look ghost-like? But peaceful? I mean, I don't know, change the writer, we might get a little bit closer there. This writer is very strange looking. And so, while this is going on, the French government and the municipality of Paris had invested 1.5 billion euros to make the polluted River Seine suitable for bathing. Today's inspection found the quality of the water unsuitable for Olympic swimmers. The problem arose after heavy rain that fell during the opening ceremonies. The preparatory event in the Seine River in Paris for the triathlon competition at the Olympics was canceled due to poor results. Then on the right side, Apollo, god of sun, and the idea of the light. Send your rays and light the sacred torch for the hospitable city of Paris. And you, Zeus, give peace to all the people. So here's this prayer going on, right? And all this stuff. So this is one of the buildings there. And this is the blood, and this is Bloody Mary. And that's supposed to represent what's going on there. Headless figures depicting the 18th century Queen Marie Antoinette, sorry. I said Bloody Mary, that's England. Queen Marie Antoinette, I meant, perform along the Seine River embankment outside the Conciergerie, where the Queen was held captive during the French Revolution during the Paris 2024 Olympics opening ceremony on the 26th. So they want to show that stuff. Then they want to show this stuff, which I'm not going to elaborate on. Then they want to show this stuff. And I look at that and go, okay, what are they going to have, a dinner or something? Yes, they're going to have a dinner. And they're going to make fun of Christ and the Last Supper. Now, so my next question is this. Why would they do this? I mean, throw an American flag up there, throw the French flag up there, throw, Hezbollah flags and all this other kind of stuff. There's one thing. But why would they set this apart as something they need to do during the opening ceremonies and target the church? Why? And we can only say that's what Jesus said would happen. This is exactly what Jesus said would happen. And they're not doing it to you in particular. They're doing it because of Jesus. They're doing it to Jesus. And Jesus said, if they persecuted me, they will persecute you. Now, we can feel persecuted, and in a sense, we are the church. They're throwing this in our face. However, I'm a little concerned that we haven't seen anything yet. I'm a little concerned as the world parades this stuff around. Elon Musk, this was extremely disrespectful to Christians. He's not a Christian in any way, shape, or form. He doesn't believe in God. He wants to save the planet by going to Mars. So those kinds of things. But even a halfway rational person can see that this was pointed at the Christians, to the Christians. And this is a very awful place. So an Israeli foreign minister said the acts of sabotage in the railway, they sabotaged the railway for people so they couldn't get to the event. Some of the people missed their event. Anyway, the acts of sabotage in the railway infrastructure throughout France in preparation for the opening of the Paris Olympics was planned and carried out under the inspiration of Iran's axis of evil. He also added that based on information in Israel's hands, the Iranians are planning to carry out terrorist attacks against the Israeli delegation and all the participants of the Olympics. And recently we talked about the 1972 Olympics, where Israelis were murdered, kidnapped, then murdered. And so it is very interesting. Let's go to the politics here for a minute in the United States. Anger brewed inside the Fortress Biden over the weekend as President Joe Biden, hit by poll after poll, said he had lost his connection to the voters, realized he could no longer win re-election according to a new report. According to NBC, Biden was isolated, frustrated, and angry. He felt betrayed by allies who turned on him in his hour of need. He's really, and I should have blanked that out, I apologize. NBC quoted what it said was a person in touch with Biden's inner circle. And remember, right up to the end, he was not leaving. He wasn't going anywhere. Everybody was behind him except those who have all the purse strings, the big purse strings. This came out a little bit, hasn't been talked about a lot, but the President of the United States arrives in Dover, Delaware. I'm doing well, he said. The flight time from Vegas was 3 hours and 48 minutes. Air Force One flew so fast, the plane shook. So just before he was announced that he had dementia, a slip. He had COVID. He had a medical situation in Vegas. He saw the doctor, and they said, okay, we can get him home. So they got on Air Force One, and they said it's never went so fast. Western Journal and others have picked up this story, but they're not talking about it a lot. So I guess, anyway, I was wondering if we missed the good old days. I was thinking about, in the last week or two, I've been thinking about, since Vice President Harris her hat is in the ring, and she got $200 million in the first week of announcing. I was thinking about just the fact that she's no Margaret Thatcher. Now, Margaret Thatcher was, to me, a great leader. Of course, she was conservative. She looked out for nationalists, nations' rights and human rights. Now, I'm not saying she was perfect. She made mistakes. So did Ronald Reagan. Of course, that Lebanon thing was a disaster. I was in the Air Force when that happened. He was the president, my commander-in-chief, when I went in 1980. And it was a great first 4 years, great career in general, but those two leaders are severely missed. And it's concerning, when we see that somebody like this is lined up with Margaret Thatcher. I do not have any problem, and I'm just talking about personally, just in case I can, assuage any questions here, but I have no problem with anybody who can do the job. I don't care what color they are. I've worked aside not every nationality, a lot of nationalities, and women and men and the people who do the job. If they can do the job, I don't care. Vote for them. But I'm just going to say this: Harris scares me. I mean, she is very, very concerning. Very concerning.
And so we set an ambitious goal to cut our greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030 and to reach net zero emissions by 2050. The investment we are announcing today will help us to achieve these goals, and it will do so much more. Because think also about the impact on not only the local economy, not only on an investment in the entrepreneurs and innovators from and in the community. Think about the impact on something like public health. When we invest in clean energy and electric vehicles and reduce population, more of our children can breathe clean air and drink clean water.
Did anybody hear that? Reduced population. Now, this goes back to that monument they found at one of the Carolinas, I think, down in the southeast somewhere, where they need to get down the world population down to 500 million. You remember that? Somebody smashed that up. At some point, I don't know, they put a stick of dynamite in it or something, but they blew it up a few years ago. This is the whole Bill Gates thing. This is the whole, I mean, again, this is going to cause a lot of conspiracy issues, but when something like that comes out of your mouth, this is not biblical. In any way, sense, shape, form, this is anti-biblical. Because God, first of all, can take care of the planet, all right? He is sovereign, he can handle the planet, and he said, go forth and multiply and cover the earth. That's what he said. He never said, well, you guys, you should stop having kids. Anybody see that anywhere in the scriptures? Like, no more kids. There was some people that he cut off for a reason, but it was because of their own sin. It wasn't because, well, you know what, the Lord's caught off guard, and I don't think I can take care of the planet anymore. You guys are messing up the ozone, you know, or the water that covers the planet, which is, what, two-thirds of the planet or more? Miles and miles deep. I don't think we have to worry about that, and even if we do, the Lord is going to fix all this. It is converging. We do have major problems. We haven't been great stewards. I'm not saying that at all. I am simply saying we don't go anti-biblical just because we have a problem. So, looking at her record, she wants to abolish ICE, immigration control, okay? She wants to defund the police. I saw it the other day. She said we want to start from scratch. Okay, so wait. Let's do that with Congress. Let's start from scratch with Congress. But she wants to start from scratch? What does that even mean? Do you fire your local police and all the sheriffs and, I mean, right on down the line? It's very, very concerning. She wants to abolish fracking. She wants to stop all offshore drilling. She wants to allow only legal immigration, but not inhibit. So you get that? She doesn't want to inhibit illegal crossings. She wants a permanent two-state solution, of course, because that's going to fix all the problems in the Middle East, because there is no hatred there. They're just being oppressed, and they just need more land. And remember, the appeasement has never happened since 1948. So Israel appeases over and over and over, and they get stabbed in the back. I am not calling Israel a righteous nation, okay? I'm simply calling the Palestinians, especially the leadership. Remember, the whole idea is they never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. They hate Israel. They want the river to the sea. And then she wants to eliminate having to go through medical insurance. Just get rid of medical. Now, I don't know about you. I don't like insurance. I just not one of my, whether it's medical or house or anything. But she wants to eliminate it, which means taxpayer-funded medical care, which is socialism. And when you have Norway and Sweden doing that, with, I can't remember, what do they have, like 1/5 or 1/7 of our population, whatever it is. When they're doing that, now we can follow suit. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Illegal entries. Trump, 1.8 million, which is way too many. Obama, 3.2, way too many. Biden, 4.31. 200,000 gotaways in this year alone. So it is a very sad place. And I've had many discussions about some people who are very, very concerned about the terrorist situation in the United States now. In fact, the FBI a couple weeks ago put on the United States on high alert for something that could happen very well in the United States. And it could. There could be another 911, heaven forbid. There could be all kinds of disasters, but I do want to remind you that we are not a Europe. We still are way ahead of Europe in our security, in our availability or ability to take care of this. And remembering that push comes to shove, there's 300 million guns in the United States. We don't want to come to that, but can disasters happen? Thousands be killed? What they are concerned, of course, is about in particular is a dirty bomb or something like that. But we have the greatest security in the world, and yet remember this: two things. The greatest security in the world failed on October 7th. It failed on 9/11. Did you know Clinton had a shot at Osama bin Laden? He didn't take it. So the Lord allows these things to happen to wake us up. October 7th, what happened there? Everybody wants to call it conspiracy, and I simply believe that God is saying, you guys think you know it all, you don't. I'm blinding your eyes to all this, and so that we'll cry out to him. Gavin Newsom, speaking of this issues executive order for removal of homeless encampments in California. The move to begin dismantling thousands of encampments throughout California comes after the High Court ruled last month in favor of an Oregon city that it ticketed homeless people for sleeping outside. The ruling rejected arguments that such anti-camping ordinances violated the Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. This executive order directs state agencies to move, this is Newsom's, direct state agencies to move urgently to address dangerous encampments while supporting and assisting the individuals living in them, and provides guidance for cities and counties to do the same. Newsom said there are simply no more excuses. It's time for everyone to do their part. Well, they would have been doing their part for some years. We could be well ahead of this problem, but the case was the most significant appeal involving unhoused Americans to reach the Supreme Court. In a recent interview with The Nation, Harris expressed sympathy for campus Gaza protesters, saying that while she didn't wholesale endorse their points, she thought they were showing exactly what the human emotion should be as a response to Gaza, though she was quick to note she does not wholesale endorse their points. Now, there was a lot of things that I could have shown and, try to target her, and I'm not trying to target her. What I'm trying to do is set up what is happening right now. Harris is backing President Biden because he's still the president, but she has to make a case for her presidency. And so I believe she's going to toe the line in general. But some of the stuff that she said and supported is coming back to her, and she can't help but slip sometimes. So watch what she says, but I am going to suggest to you that if she becomes the president, remember, she was voted as the far left senator of all the senators. She was far left. And so if she becomes president, I believe that we are in deep, deep trouble. The executive orders are going to pile up. Kamala Harris she said she's going to skip the Netanyahu address. She did. Netanyahu addressed the United States for the 4th time. Nobody else has done that. He got 58 standing ovations. I don't know if you watched that. I did. Many of the Democrats stood up many times for what he was saying. They're very concerned about Israel, and as a democracy, they don't understand the biblical Israel. Most of them don't. Nancy Pelosi said it's the worst speech ever. So now this is not surprising, but remember, she was one of the powers behind what happened to Biden there. So Netanyahu made a comment. He said, America stands, and so I put the America stands, and he said this, America stands in the way. And we've talked about this over the last probably 7-8 years, that America is standing in the way of, we want to say evil, that's God, the Holy Spirit does that. But we do want to say that they have been standing in the way of power brokers in the world since World War II in particular. and power brokers in the Middle East since 1948. This is waning. Again, what happened with Afghanistan and Russia being able to invade Crimea and then Ukraine. So America is being shoved out of the way, and I believe that God is keeping her there for a while, but it's going to be very interesting if and when she departs, in whatever form that looks like. So does it sound familiar? She publicly proclaims loyalty to Israel's friendship while also publicly telling it to end the war and totally withdraw from Gaza. With about a brigade of Hamas terrorists there, she wants them to leave Gaza. The current iteration of the proposed deal has two phases, Harris revealed. Phase one calls for a full ceasefire, including a withdrawal of the Israeli military from population centers in Gaza. The second phase would see the Israeli military withdraw from Gaza entirely. And I can tell you that right now, the latest is from most of the ministers in Netanyahu's cabinet, they are saying we're going to have to stay in Gaza in one way, shape, or form. Harris said that there was hopeful movement in talks to secure an agreement on this deal, but when asked several times by Fox Digital whether she is applying the same pressure to Hamas leaders to accept the terms as she is to Netanyahu and Israel, her office did not respond. Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. You see it? There we go. Israel, this is the line. Israel has a right to defend itself. Everybody says that. The whole world says that. All the West says that. But how it does so matters. Now, in a real world, we would say, yes, it does. But what does it matter? What does how it does matters mean in the Western Hemisphere? Like there's no, you can't shoot a bullet, you can't fire into Gaza and all this other stuff. Now again, we know, and I just want to make this clear. If Israel was right with God, October 7th wouldn't have happened. They wouldn't have to be defending themselves. And so now they're defending themselves based on their own military, their own hubris, their own know-how, and their own pride in some ways. They say, well, we can take care of this matter. You know, everybody just step out of the way and let us do our job. We understand that. But they wouldn't be in this situation if they were a godly people. If they were calling out to their God, Jesus would come and take it right now. He would fix it right now. However, now that they have profaned God's name in the nations, they are having to defend themselves, and when they defend themselves, the world hates them. And much of the church hates them. They're not right, you know, what they're doing is not right. And again, I want to say that if somebody comes to your door, or somebody next door is firing weapons over your house and killing your dogs and threatening your kids and stuff, I don't think we'd be standing by and just let it happen. And this was tit for tat for a long time until October 7th. And so, and another issue's coming up too. So Israel has a right to defend itself, and how it does so matters. It is time for this war to end. And who is she talking to? She's telling Israel to back off and leave Gaza. End the war. And my question is to everybody, does that end the war? And the answer is no. It's been proven absolutely not. And end is a way that Israel is secure, all the hostages are released, the suffering of Palestinians in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can exercise their right to freedom, dignity, and self-determination. So who does she think she is? Is she the Messiah that's going to make this happen? Because this is just unrealistic. It just simply is unrealistic. As I just told Prime Minister Netanyahu, it is time to get this deal done. Harris said, so to everyone who has been calling for a ceasefire and to everyone who yearns for peace, I see you and I hear you. Now, I want to remind you of when Netanyahu first came over and visited Obama, and if you'll go look that up, their first meeting, Obama lit into him and in public demanded all of this stuff. And you could see it on Netanyahu's face. He was embarrassed. He left. I think it was a year or two later, Obama had him back, maybe a couple, 3 years later. Obama had him back. And you remember what happened? That in public, in the same two chairs it looks like, Netanyahu let Obama have it. And you could see it on Obama's face, that he was livid. He was absolutely livid. And if he didn't, I don't want to use the word hate, but if he didn't dislike Netanyahu then, before then, he did after he left. And so this is the same thing that Harris, simply because she's the vice president and now running for president, thinks that, she can tell Netanyahu, get this deal done. When Hamas, first of all, won't do their part. And again, he's the prime minister of a sovereign nation. And sometimes we are very, very arrogant. Harris will continue to support most of Biden's agenda and promise much of this. That's the key. Promise much of the same. However, she must build her own platform, and she is much more progressive. And so look for the deviations, and those are my notes. So the DC Palestinian Youth Movement released maggots and crickets were released throughout the Watergate Hotel where Netanyahu is staying. The protesters also pulled multiple fire alarms throughout the night. Welcome to the United States. So they desecrated, monuments and stuff, and they said Hamas is coming. See up on top there? Hamas is coming. Free Gaza. Free all, and then bad words here, apologize again for that. The Capitol Hill protesters these Capitol Hill protesters are Jewish Voice for Peace, which is not a Jewish organization. It's a bunch of anti-Semitic leftists who wear Jew as a political costume to conceal the radical agenda. They promote terrorism, anti-Semitism, and violence. Did I say they were Jewish? I didn't mean they were Jewish. Remember what Revelation said, that they claim to be Jews and are not Jews? That's kind of interesting. Pro-Hamas agitators chant phrase as they torch America flags and hoist the Palestinian one. They're calling out to their God, the moon god, by the way. And you can find him in the Bible, in the book of Joshua. Or Judges. Israel now has their own, what we call, equivalent to Air Force One. I think they call it the Wings of Israel or something like that. And he piled in and came over, Wings of Zion, I'm sorry.
Now, millions of people around the world have been chanting Free Palestine. Well, I've decided to see Palestine. Welcome to the Wild West Bank. Are you supportive of Hamas?
Yes.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
Are most Palestinians?
Yes.
Palestinian people like Hamas.
I'm with the resistance.
Did you see the videos they posted of what they did on October 7th?
Everything.
And you're okay with all that?
With everything they did.
They killed innocent Israelis. They killed... Yes,
No.
they did.
No.
Yes, they did.
Give me a picture for rape.
Do you think Hamas should release the Israeli hostages?
No.
No.
Nothing named Israel.
There's nothing named Israel?
Yeah.
The Quran mentions Israel over 100 times.
Is Palestine mentioned in the Quran?
No. The murders Hamas did on October 7th, is that okay?
Yes. They have the right to do it.
The problem is not Hamas. We should look at the bigger picture.
They living under occupation.
But Israel left Gaza in 2005.
Sure?
What does Antifa?
Violent.
And neither one of us were born anywhere near 1940. We have to deal with the reality today.
No.
No, don't deal with the reality today.
Britain brought all the criminal Jews since 1948. They can go back. Hollanda, Iraq.
Most of those places, they were kicked out.
Jews have not been killed or exposed to any struggle or any violence. Not
Almost
in...
every country in the Middle East.
No.
That's true.
Educate yourself. If they are kicked, it's because of their own actions.
What did they do besides being Jewish?
They steal, they do all awful deeds.
In the U.S., it's a big movement right now. Queers for Palestine. Are you supportive of that?
No, we don't have it.
You don't have gay people here.
No.
It's like an alien. It would not be acceptable.
No, to be honest with you, no.
Do you want to live with the Israelis in peace or
No. I want one state solution. No Israel.
So no more Israel?
Yes.
Israel wiped off the map.
Palestine فقط.
We should delete Israel.
So you would not be okay with a two-state solution?
Of course not.
Israelis prisoners when they released from Gaza, they was smiling.
You think that these people are genuinely smiling after being held hostage? They're scared for their life.
Who put this in your brain?
I think you're in denial about Hamas. So Hamas implements strict Sharia law. It looks like in Ramallah, at least, you're free to show your hair. Would you want Hamas to be in charge?
They would allow for elections.
They
Why
haven't
not?
had elections in Gaza in 20 years. That's a fact.
Facts hurt.
Watch the best part.
If we win, it'll be very simple. It's all going to work out and very quickly. If we don't, it could end up with major wars in the Middle East and maybe a third world war. You are closer to a third world war right now than at any time since the Second World War. You've never been so close because we have incompetent people running our country. Thank you very much, everybody.
Now, let's be frank. Let me read this. Following the meeting, Trump said Kamala Harris's statement about Israel was disrespectful. My relationship with Netanyahu was never bad. We were always on good terms. The abductees should return immediately. Now, I don't know where you're at with your vote in 2024 in November coming up, just a short time. I think it seems to be fairly clear, despite the fact that there are problems on both sides, but one is significantly much worse. Okay, so having said that, I read for myself and I heard for myself Trump, what he said about Netanyahu and the problems that he had with him. In particular, when they went to get Soleimani, Netanyahu was going to send Israelis alongside the United States to do that, and at the last minute, Netanyahu pulled out, and Trump was livid. He was mad. And he was also very angry when he couldn't make the deal, the two-state solution deal. And remember what we said here on Sunday night, that Trump called Abbas. He said Abbas was like a father to him, and Netanyahu didn't want anything to do with it. You remember that? Now, Netanyahu did not want anything to do with the two-state solution, okay? And I don't know who can fault him for that. If you wish to, please do, but that's not biblical, first of all. And secondly, remember, Trump wants to get a deal. His most famous book is The Art of the Deal. That's been the past. So he needs to be careful about telling outright lies, to be frank. However, this is politics. Now, he says he's not a politician. He's starting to sound like one. So they get this little kumbaya moment. I think it's good. I do think it's going to be a lot better than a Harris presidency if he wins. But it'll be very interesting if they can get along. And to be frank, if Netanyahu's even going to be there for very long. Because remember, they're in a war. He was there when October 7th happened. All the guns, remember, all the guns in Israel are pointed outwards. But if peace settles in, they're going to start pointing inward. And Netanyahu's going to be in trouble politically in a big way. So we'll see this thing going forward. But Trump, and again, I do want to say this, and I want to restate this. He said recently that I no longer think that the two-state solution is a viable solution. And so that is biblical. That's where we want to see him. And that's one of the most important things as far as the Bible is concerned, and I'm concerned, that there's no such thing as a two-state solution. It's a one-state solution. So Israel's preparation for January, Israel is gearing up Netanyahu's gearing up in his mind and in his heart, what are we going to do if we're standing all by ourselves come January? And we will know what happens in the elections. The rabbi says the elections will be a choice between Kamala Harris as Daniel's fourth kingdom or Trump as second non-Jewish Messiah. It's really interesting to read these things. Lots of rabbis chime in with Israel 365 and others, and you can hear them, the Orthodox rabbis are trying to make sense of things. A lot of them are almost like, well, pretty cultic, actually. They're fairly cultic statements and ideas. It's fairly clear that in history, Rome is the fourth kingdom. Will Rome come out of the United States? Very, very unlikely, according to Scripture. And we talked about that this morning. And then Trump as the second non-Jewish Messiah, this is raising its head again. Remember in 2016, in 17, 18, he was hailed as the second Cyrus. And they made a coin with his head on it and all that kind of stuff. He's done some great things for Israel. He announced the Golan Heights were there. He moved the embassy and all those kinds of things, that Jerusalem was their capital. All those, really, those are biblical things, very good things. I just continue to hope he does that. But so the Democratic divide. In 2001, 18% of Democrats sympathized with the Palestinians. In 2024, 38% of them sympathize with the Palestinians. 53% of Democrats believe Israel is committing genocide against Palestinian citizens. And that's an argument that we can take. You know what? There's too many citizens dying. There's just absolutely no doubt about it. But if you give another viable solution about what Israel should do, I am willing to listen to it. So the idea here, ending this section here, is to vote on Tuesday the 5th. We need to vote. I think this is a real turning, well, we've had a few turning points, haven't we? But this one is dire. I think it's dire. But no matter what happens, this is what we remember. Going through Daniel chapter 2 and others. This is what we have to remember, because you think about this now. The United States is the most powerful military in the world. It's the most powerful economic situation in the world, country in the world. Still the largest church in the world. And if we don't believe that God cares about what's going on with America, we are blind. We don't know history. We don't understand the Bible. He cares. He knows. He's using America for his ends, and we will witness what that plan is. Whether we think it's bad or good doesn't matter. When it happens, we will praise him and say, okay, Lord, now we know a little bit more of your plan. We know now what is going to happen. You know, if Trump wins, we get maybe a little bit of a reprieve with some things. Maybe, we can stifle the border issue for a while. The cops are going to feel like they're loved a little bit more. Some of this other stuff. We're going to see the oil and gas flow in the United States will be probably number one very, very quickly. Those wells are just being ready to open. They're all closed up and shut up right now. A bunch of those leases are on the back burner. However, that's not going to save America, and it just may be a short reprieve, and we just don't know. If Harris becomes our president, I'm telling you folks, and okay, so biblically it's bad because of Israel and all those kind of things. But so I'll just give you my personal opinion. If Harris becomes president, God is telling us to Katy bar the door, because it's going to be a very, very difficult time, for the church too. We are enduring immense hatred. Hindu extremists storm a church. They beat the Christians at a worship service. We locked the gate and stayed indoors, not making any noise. Soon we found the mob with women leading in front, banging on the gate, trying to break open the lock. When the pastor asked what they were doing, they replied, "Open the gate, let's talk, let's talk." He said they replied that if there was anything to talk about, only 2 or 3 of them need to enter. "Why did you come as a mob of over 100? We questioned them. But they kept repeating that we must open the lock, and they would not only talk to us. As they banged and pushed the gate in that struggle, the lock was let loose by us, and at once the mob of around 150 rushed inside the premises like a floodwaters. They went all around the house, vandalizing every object in sight, and some of them were carrying lathis. They beat wherever on the body badly. The beating continued until police arrived and dispersed the mob. He said after taking their statements, officers told them to come to the police station at 7 to receive a copy of the first information report. Officers there kept them waiting for more than an hour, though they were aware that the couple's 1-year-old and 7-year-old children had not eaten all day and had been crying after witnessing the violence. So that's a terrible situation in the church overseas in one location and many, many others. The North American Aerospace Defense Command intercepted 2 Russian and 2 Chinese bombers flying together for the first time ever near Alaska Wednesday in what a U.S. Defense Office official said was the first time the 2 countries have been intercepted while operating together. During the intercept, American F-16s and 35s, along with the Canadian CF-18s, were deployed. So that's during this administration. Arab report, the Ukrainian strikes hit a Tu-22 M3 long-range bomber. So just suffice it to say, 1,800 kilometers, which is I think is about 1,500 miles, the Ukrainians bombed some nuclear capable bombers up to the north there by Finland. So that was a strategic win for the Ukrainians, but very dangerous as well. Beijing, China, declaration seeks the formation of a unity government and the achievement of the Palestinian independence at an early date. Of course, standing in the way of these noble aims is Israel, which is furious with China for inviting Hamas to the talks. Also, the Israeli parliament recently passed a bill rejecting the establishment of a Palestinian state, effectively telling the world Tel Aviv has no intention of vacating the occupied territories. 14 Palestinian factions signed the declaration, with Hamas and Fatah being the most prominent of them. So China is still trying to engage, but they really can't. Now, let's go to Turkey. And if anybody's getting really loud beside Hamas and Hezbollah, it's Turkey. First of all, watch this clip of him and a child who wants to come meet him. So the kid wouldn't kiss his hand, and maybe he didn't know better, but Erdogan smacked him. Like, you're supposed to kiss my hand. Yeah. Erdogan, this was today. We must be very strong so that Israel can't do these things to Palestine. Watch. Just as we entered Karabakh, just as we entered Libya, we might do the same to them. There is nothing we cannot do, only we must be strong. So that's a warning of invasion of Israel. An anti-Israel faction spearheaded by Turkey's pro-Iran Hezbollah group and endorsed by Erdogan's government party has made significant strides in advancing a bill that would permit the revocation of Turkish citizenship for dual Israeli nationals, the confiscation of their assets, and their criminal prosecution. However, something very unusual happened in the Turkish parliament on May 7th, signaling that this situation was quite different for Hezbollah lawmakers, I'm going to skip their names, who managed to enter parliament for the first time by running on Erdogan's party ticket in last year's elections, submitted a motion asking the assembly to consider the bill directly, bypassing any review and debate in the committees. So they're trying to come down on the Jews in Turkey even harder. Britain, remember a week or two ago, as soon as the new prime minister stepped in, He said, we're going to reject those arrest warrants by the ICC, the International Courts of Justice, ICJ. Anyway, Britain has withdrawn its objection to the issuance of warrants. So now, go ahead and arrest Netanyahu. So that's, and by the way, Defense Minister gone as well. So, so UK is being lost by their right-wing socialist leaderships now. A Taliban commander urged young Afghans to attack Iranians, calling the Iranian government infidel and cruel, and the people polytheist and worse than Jews and Christians. He claimed the Taliban would introduce Iranian to real Islam. So that is interesting. Remember in Ezekiel 39, that the Lord would turn their swords on each other, and that's why, because they just don't like each other. China has brokered a deal uniting Hamas's Muslim Brotherhood terrorists with Abbas's Fatah, so the Palestinian groups of Gaza and the West Bank. He's trying to get them to come together. The intent is to secure $70 billion in contracts to rebuild Gaza. Do you know if the Chinese go in there and rebuild Gaza, do you know what it's going to look like? It's going to look like a security nightmare for Israel in a very big way. The Knesset approved in the first reading UNRWA to be declared by the Senate of Israel as a terrorist organization. That's a good thing. We'll see what that comes out of that. Israel's Iron Beam, this is important, will soon be operational, protecting the nation from all airborne threats. Each interception costs under $20 instead of the $50,000 from anti-defense systems or defense systems, and never runs out of ammunition. It will be the world's first large-scale laser defense system. Maybe that's why we are waiting with the war against Hezbollah. And we know that the United States is working on this. We know Australia is working on this. We know Germany, China probably too. But Germany wants to buy this system already. UK is working on this as well. Speaking of Germany, the Chancellor, Germany will not stop arms exports to Israel. We will continue to provide her with the weapons she needs. The German government opposes calls to boycott Israel products. I find these demands disgusting. So now, you've got the UK and Germany at real odds here right now. The French are kind of in the middle because they've got that coalition, that mess in the coalition. So they're going to lean more toward the UK, I believe, because they're now both, in general, leftist governments. And so Germany, it's really interesting, is more pro-Israel than it has been in the past. But they've got a large population that isn't. So that's a problem as well. U.S. weapons began to flow to Israel again. The IDF says it has completed all preparations for a ground maneuver in Lebanon against Hezbollah. So the question is, I asked this a week ago to myself, I put it up here. I said, why has Israel waited to attack Hezbollah? Hezbollah keeps attacking them. Why has Israel waited? Did they wait because of the spring? Did they wait because of U.S. elections? Did they wait for their Iron Beam to be completed? We don't know. And yet it was taken out of their hands this week. Hezbollah, this week, the Israeli Navy intercepted a UAV on its way to blow up the Karish gas rig, which is in the northern area of the economic waters. And so that was one of the newer gas rigs that Israel set up. They were able to blow it out of the sky. And then Hezbollah finally turned the page yesterday, 2 days ago. Reports in Lebanon, they were fearing an Israeli attack, so they're talking about evacuation centers. This was 3 days ago. During that time, U.S. drones were flying and monitoring Lebanese territory. Everybody's afraid. More and more nations are calling for evacuations of their people out of Lebanon. And then this happened. This was no more than 48 hours ago. Arab-speaking Druze are killed by a Hezbollah retaliatory strike using a Falah 1 Iranian-made rocket that only Hezbollah has. 14, I got 14 there, I think it's only 12. 14 children from ages 14 to 20 are dead. 4 of them of the same family. Over a dozen more are wounded. a senior Israeli official in Prime Minister's entourage in Washington. The incident in the north will lead to a dramatic turn in the fighting there. Now, again, the Druze there are Israeli nationals. They're a cult-like group, religious group. They're not Christians, but they align with the conservative Israeli idea, nationalism, if you will. They're definitely against Islam and that kind of an idea there. But anyway, so rocket came, killed 12 of them. 2 hours ago, the Israeli army released evidence showing shrapnel found at the scene of the rocket strike in Majdal Shams yesterday matched an Iranian-made Falak 1 rocket. The Israeli army also published the flight path of the heavy rocket. The United States has confirmed that flight path as well. This is the funeral, mass funeral of the children.
Before we begin, I want to condemn the evil attack on Israel that took place earlier today. A missile launched by Hezbollah killed at least a dozen children, young children. And they were playing, as you heard, on a soccer field in Israeli territory on the Golan Heights, a place that I recognized during my administration as under Israel's sovereignty. It was a big thing. We've been trying to get it done for 72 years. I got it done in about 1 hour. Today's attack on Israel cannot be forgotten, and it will go down as another moment in history created by a weak and ineffective United States president and vice president. They wouldn't have done this if I were the president. They wouldn't have done it. And they didn't. With time, the situation will only get worse for our country with the kind of leadership that we have right now, which is no leadership. It's probably worse than no leadership. It's negative.
Now we know he boasts. He's a prideful man, and we'll leave that between him and the Lord. I do pray that he's a little closer to God than maybe he has been. But I will say this: when he says he did that in an hour, I want to suggest to you that's a reality, and I'll tell you why. Because in I can't remember the year, but I think it was Carter administration. And during the Carter, I can't remember the administration, but it goes back a long time, decades and decades, where they recognized, the United States recognized Jerusalem as the capital and all these areas as Israeli areas. And yet, even with the Reagan administration and the Bush administration and others, they simply just didn't recognize, the president didn't recognize it and make it happen, move the embassy and do these other things. And he just did it. Now, again, whatever you think of him, there is one thing that's very interesting. He's not afraid. He will step up and do what he thinks is in his mind, which can be negative or positive. But when he gets something in his mind, he does it. And he recognized Jerusalem. He recognized the Golan Heights and moved the embassy. And there's some other things that he did. So there was the rocket attack. Came out of up near that river. Can't remember the name of that river there. But now the defense wants to push the Lebanese border, if you will. They want to push Israeli defense up to that river. It goes right about where that north of Shabbat is. And right across where you see Lebanon, and it'll cut about 1/4 or 1/3 out of Lebanon, and Israel will defend that border to give them a buffer zone. That's what they want to do, and we may see that happen here very soon. So the idea here is this is the Jewish and the Druze flag. They're kind of in the same boat. They're Arab speaking. The Druze are generally Arab speaking, but they're kind of in the same boat here. Here's the defense minister and some others came to the ball field They're talking about what's going to happen. Netanyahu at this time is on his way back, and then he lands. The DF spokesman in a special statement from Magdal Shams, we came here with the chief of staff. We held a situation assessment with the Minister of Defense and the chief of staff. The rocket was a Falah 1 type rocket. This is a rocket that is only in the hands of Hezbollah. So Hezbollah orders the evacuation of hundreds of non-military sites. They see a war coming. This was before the rocket attack. This happened. Opposition leader Lapid, after the attack, said retaliation will be severe and it will reverberate throughout the Middle East. Likud ministers getting heckled. The kids are gone and you show up. Why is there still a Beirut at all? So there's a division in the politics in Israel right now. This guy's saying, Lapid is saying, Beirut should be gone by now. So everybody's calling for an attack. Israeli foreign minister said Sunday that Hezbollah has crossed all red lines with a rocket strike blamed on the Lebanese armed group that killed 12 youngsters. The countries that are calling for their citizens to leave and not go to Lebanon, there's a bunch of them there. The United States is there. And Netanyahu is back in his seat, even I think as we speak, saying, okay, where now? And I think things could get pretty dicey here pretty soon. And so Iran says at the end of this, any infringement by Israel on Lebanon's national sovereignty will be met with a decisive and united response across the entire axis of resistance. I repeat, a firm and united response. Make no mistake. Now, I want to remind you of something that has been said here, okay? We said this and kind of stood by it there for a while. When Hamas went in on October 7th, they got ahead of Iran. They were supposed to be coordinated. They were going to do some things together. And Hamas was ready and they couldn't wait and they went. And so basically Iran and Hezbollah threw Hamas under the bus, let them take the heat for it. We're not going to die because of their work. But I want to remind you that Hezbollah is not Hamas. Hezbollah is Shia. They really hate the Sunnis. There's a problem with them and the Sunnis. However, whoever hates Israel will befriend them for a while. But when Hezbollah comes under attack, I'm concerned because Israel, that is a big arm of the octopus that is Iran. And I don't believe that they will let them be hanging. However, we still have the fleet, the United States fleet out there in the Mediterranean. They are looking over this situation in a big way right now. We got the Marines there. And so Iran has to think twice. However, they don't want to lose Hezbollah as well. So Hezbollah made a mistake. It is being said by what I can gain from so-called experts that Hezbollah fired on this soccer field and they didn't mean to. And yet this could be the spark that causes Israel to say, okay, we're done. We're not playing games anymore. And I want to also remind you that the Christians and many of the Lebanese don't want Hezbollah to draw Israel into a fight. They know they're going to lose if Iran stays out of it, if Russia stays out of it. Again, what happens from here is going to be a very big deal. The questions keep coming. Is this the beginning of the Ezekiel 38 war? Let me say this. There's still huge problems in Sudan. There's a civil war in Sudan. There's a civil war in Libya. There's a civil war in Syria still. If everybody decided at once to turn their guns on Israel and come against them, Ezekiel 38 could take place. But I don't think it will. And this is based on the Bible because Gog, I believe Gog is Israel. Is Russia. Magog is Russia. She's tied up in Ukraine. She is not ready. I don't even think with the weapons she's ready to come down south. They want to take the oil, they want to take the spoil, and their minds are not there yet. Okay, they want to come against Israel. However, this is a huge move in the pre-staging of all of that. Let's end here. Matthew 24:42, therefore stay awake, for you do not know on what day your Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would not have let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Blessed is that servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. Truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. Let's look at the context here just a little bit. In the Old Testament, Israel was God's servant. They were to give the food to first the Israelis and then the light to the nations. They weren't doing that very well. When Jesus came, they weren't doing that. He's turning to the church. He's talking to his disciples, and he's saying to his servants, who are his servants, which is now the church, feed my sheep, is what he's saying. Do the work of him, the master, until he comes back. So this can be taken in two ways. One, before the rapture, when he'd be doing the work. And two, after the rapture, he will come again. And those people who are doing the work of God during the tribulation, after the rapture, must be ready for his coming back. Okay? The same kind of thing in Luke 21, but watch yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with dissipation and drunkenness and cares of this life, and that day come upon you suddenly like a trap. For it will come upon all who dwell on the face of the whole earth. But stay awake at all times, praying that you may have strength to escape all these things that are going to take place and to stand before the Son of Man. There he's specifically talking about the tribulation there, okay? Mark 13, but concerning that day or that hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Be on your guard, keep awake, for you do not know when this time will come. It is like a man going on a journey when he leaves home and puts his servants in charge, each with his work, and commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know when the master of the house will come, in the evening or at midnight, or when the rooster crows or in the morning, lest he comes suddenly and find you asleep. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. Now watch. What I say to you, I say to everyone, all of his servants, stay awake. Look at the end of verse 34. Well, look at 34. It's like a man going on a journey when he leaves home and puts his servants, all of his servants, in charge. Each one with his work. Look at your gifting from the Holy Spirit. Look at your desires to work on the church's behalf and on Christ's behalf. That's your work, all right? And he commands the doorkeeper to stay awake. And so those people who are watching for these things, and we announce these things were in God's name and for God's sake and for the sake of the church. That's what we are doing here. So we have a message to take as ambassadors for Christ. We're ambassadors, Paul calls us. We're a priesthood and a holy nation. We have a work to do on God's behalf. Go do it. We need to do it in this very dark hour. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the church. And pray for Christ to come back even today. Let's end. Lord, we're grateful, Lord, to know you and to be known by you in particular. You have our names written down in the Lamb's book of life. You told the 70 disciples that when they went out and they were casting out demons and doing all kinds of things, and when they came back rejoicing, you told them specifically not to rejoice that they can do all those things, but to rejoice that their names are written down in the Lamb's book of life. And so we give you all praise and glory. Lord, take us from here by the power of your word and by the power of your spirit. Help us to take a good word, not a good word that the world is falling apart, not a good word that all these disasters are happening, but the good word is that you are going to deliver us from all of this. We look forward to that great and fantastic day in Jesus' precious name. Amen.